Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nikki, and in this video, I'm going to be attempting something I have never done before. I'm going to try painting on my crochet plushies with fabric paint. Now, I have seen this done before by other creators, but they were using acrylic yarn, and I'm actually going to be painting on chenille yarn. Also, a quick disclaimer, I have very little painting skills, like almost none, especially when it comes to painting on mediums other than canvas. So if you're here for professional level plushie art, my friend, well, that is just not on the menu today. We are going to be learning together as we go. So I'm going to start super simple and add some eyes to this mushy pot because it currently doesn't have any. And oh, he's already got one eye. Yeah, go figure. I forgot to hit record on the camera before I started. But here is where I quickly learned that the yarn kind of like indents where you add the paint. I'll show you what I mean, but the eyes are kind of like little dug out holes in the yarn. And for painting on eyes, that's fine. But I was already beginning to think about how this was going to affect the other ideas that I had for the other plushies, and I was starting to get a little nervous, not gonna lie. Yeah, I think I put the eyes a little too close together and then they're a little bit too high up on the head, but we can't really change it now, and that's the downside of painting on your plushies. Also, I wanted to see what it would be like to add some little highlights, so I added some little white dots in each eye, and oh, he has a mouth now. Again, I forgot to turn my camera on. Sorry about that. That's the only time that'll happen in this video. The whites are a little staring into my soul, but I do still think he's very cute and very derpy. So I'm gonna set him aside to dry and let's check on him later. Now the next plushie we're gonna give a little makeover to is this mint green octopus. I'm gonna take the keychain off him, but I've got a few ideas for him and I wanna start with the modeling clay. I have virtually no experience with modeling clay. I have never used it before. I got this entire box just for the red and the green clay. I'm just gonna sculpt this little red ball. And yeah, I think that's a good size. Now I'm gonna make the little green stem. I'm just gonna kind of roll it out nice and thin and then cut it to a good length. And now I'm gonna attach the stem to the cherry. Yes, this little red thing is a tomato. Yeah, why does that look like a tomato? Maybe it's the color, like maybe the red's a little too red and the green's a little too green. So I'm gonna scrap that stem, fix the little cherry, and set that aside for now. And now it's time for the paint. You can tell that I'm procrastinating because I am so nervous to be painting on this plushie that I just made. But here we go. Now, if you haven't guessed it yet, I'm painting little chocolate chips on him. He's going to be a little mint chocolate chip octopus. That mint color of the yarn is just so perfect and delicious looking. It's like the perfect ice cream color. So I went in with some bigger chips, and now I'm going in for some smaller like dots to add some variety. And I'm just going to do that all the way around, including on his legs. Now, some of you might be wondering, why am I doing this? Why am I painting on my plushie? And that's a really good question. Well, number one, there are just some designs that might not work as well with yarn as they might with paint, like these chocolate chips. If I want to add them to the legs, I feel like that would be really difficult with yarn because you'd have yarn tails everywhere. The idea just popped into my head one day and I thought, why not try it out? So here we are. Anyways, I'm just finishing up the last of the chocolate chip spots and it's looking so good. Like, look at that. I honestly think it looks exactly like mint chocolate chip ice cream. I'm really loving it so far. So let's set him aside to dry. And now I'm bringing in something called imitation cream. This stuff is supposed to look like whipped cream basically. And I got a white and a pink color. They're both in these tubes and they come with little toppers that look just like the kind that bakers use to like decorate cakes. So I did a little test with the pink just to get a feel for how to apply the cream. And then I went straight in right on top of the octopus. And dang it, this stuff is super sticky. I messed up and I need to try again. So I'm gonna wipe this off and give it another go. I really hope that the stickiness is a sign that the cream will stay on top and not fall off once it dries, because that is something that I'm worried about. Okay, that went a little better. So let's plop our little cherry right on top here. And he's looking so cute. Now I should have stopped here. Watching back this footage, I look back and see that it looks fine. I probably could have fixed it just by adding some more cream to the bottom. But as you see, I decided to get out the paintbrush and I tried to kind of lay that cream down on his head because there was a little bit of a gap. So yeah, I had this bright idea to try to smooth out the paint and I ended up making it way messier than it needed to be. And I messed with it for another 10 minutes before I decided to just add a little bit more cream to the outside like I should have done in the first place. But here he is. He's looking pretty cute. I'm gonna let him dry overnight. Now this is the next day and I just wanna come back in with some more brown paint and add a few more chocolate chips around the eyes. At first, I didn't want to add too many chocolate chips on the face just because I didn't want the eyes to get lost. So I waited until it was dry enough to handle and then I went in with some more dots on the front. All right, I'm gonna set him aside for now so he can dry and we're gonna get started on our third plushie. Our last plushie is gonna be this black loaf cat. As you can see, he's missing his mouth, nose, and whiskers. And if you're anything like me, embroidering on facial details makes you sweat a little. I tend to get it wrong a lot of the time, so I have to pull out my work and redo it like 2 to 3 times sometimes. So I was curious, would painting on the face be easier than embroidering? I started with the dotting tool and quickly realized that was not gonna work, so I switched over to the thin brush and that seemed to work a lot better. And like, it looks fine. I mean, it's not terrible, but remember earlier how I said the yarn kind of indents down? Well, when you're making circles for eyes, it's not bad. But when you're trying to make clean lines, things start to get a little messy. I think that maybe doing like a sort of piping on technique could work better, but painting lines directly onto the chenille just does not look good enough to replace embroidery. I also tried to add little highlights around the eyes and that went terribly. I got paint all over the eyes, all over the yarn, and it just does not look good. This is not a replacement for embroidery. There's no way that I would continue to do this type of line work on my plushies. But like I said earlier, I am a total noob and I am just learning as I go. But this did give me the idea to paint on the eyes themselves. Obviously, people paint on eyes all the time, but I'm not sure that I've seen just like a very small, slight white highlight on eyes before. So I'm thinking maybe I can try that out in a future video. Now, I wanted to see what it was like to try painting like 2 coats of paint over it, and that just like does not work here. Once the paint is hard, it's really difficult to cleanly go over it. The whole face is just a complete fail. So since I've kind of already ruined his face, let's go in and see what it's like to paint on his entire body. I'm just curious, what is it like if you were to paint a really large surface of a plushie with paint? I can kind of already imagine what it's going to be like, but I wanted to see for myself. I'm starting with this dark blue, and then I'm going to add some lighter colors on top, some light blue, some purple, some pink, because we are making a galaxy design. A galaxy design is something that's not really easy to replicate with yarn. I also went through a galaxy phase a few years ago and I painted them on like everything. That's kind of the only painting experience that I have. So yeah, I'm gonna try to paint a little galaxy on this loaf cat. Now he's looking a little messy. It's not the greatest galaxy I've ever done, but I'm gonna let him dry overnight and we're gonna come back tomorrow to see what he's like the next day. Okay, it's the next day. Let's get my paint ready again and let's see what's going on. Oh, he's pretty crusty. This is something that I kind of expected, so it's not too much of a surprise. But it's definitely not the best quality to have in a plushie, like the amount of crust that it has. I did leave half of the plushie unpainted just because I needed to lay it down so it could dry. But it was also a way for me to test what it's like to go over that first coat of paint. And that first coat, again, it's the same thing as the face. It's very like crusty and it's really hard to go over it cleanly. You kind of have to push the brush down in between the hardened pieces of chenille that are sticking up. And then I'm just gonna go around and finish the rest of the body. And in this side, I'm gonna do a little bit differently than I did on the other side. I'm gonna add as much color as I can directly onto that dark blue paint, because I want to see if I can just get enough color on there with one coat so I don't have to do two coats. Because like I said, going over that first coat of paint is not like as easy. So if you could paint it all in one go and have it dry and look really nice, then that would be great. So we'll see. I think the galaxy is looking pretty good, so I'm gonna add some stars. I'm just gonna use the splatter method. I've got some white paint on my brush. I've watered it down a little and I'm just splattering it straight onto the plushie. Fixing up this little spot. And here's what we're looking like. Yeah, it's pretty messy. It's definitely not my best galaxy work, but it's good enough. I almost forgot the bottom, so I'm going to do that really quick and then set him aside to dry, and we will check back in on him and the other plushies. Okay, they're all dried. Here's the cat, and all of that color that I added, it really faded a lot. I think that the plushie does need 2 coats of paint, but I think what I'm going to do when I try this again in the future is just paint 1 coat of all one color. So like in this situation, I would have only painted all the blue. Let that dry, and then go in on top with all of the other colors. Now, in regards to the crustiness, I'm not really sure what to do about that. I don't really think there's anything you can do, but let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions. Otherwise, I do think it's a bit messy. I mean, it's cute from a distance. And here's the mushy pop. He dried just fine. I mean, honestly, he looks good. His eyes are a little crusty. But honestly, in this situation, I kind of think that they're fine. I think that he's cute. I think he's really derpy. My sister really liked him. I don't think it was the most perfect execution. I mean, he is a little creepy looking too. But I would say that this was a pretty successful try. And then finally, we've got the octopus. This one is my favorite. I actually think he turned out so good. He's adorable. The whipped cream on top did dry all the way through. It does add a little bit of weight to the plushie, like he is a bit heavier. But after it dried, everything seems to be staying on just fine, and like I said earlier, I was worried that it might pop off, so I'm really happy that everything is staying put. So yeah, here are all the plushies that I painted in this video. Was it a total disaster? Maybe, but I actually really love the ice cream octopus. He's definitely my favorite of the 3. But I do think I'd like to try painting on plushies again in the future. Let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions or advice for me or things that I should try. because like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. All right guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Also, let me know in the comments which makeover was your favorite. I'm super curious to know what you guys think. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!